Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Qasim's not able to join today, but our guest today is Dennis. So Dennis, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
All right. Well, my name is Dennis Consorte, and I live in New York City. That's as specific as I'm going to get on a podcast, though I imagine you could probably look my address up online if you really wanted to. What I do is I help amplify stories, meaning that every company, every individual has a story they want to tell, and I help them get that out there so that they get the attention they deserve.
So how did you go about starting and doing this business or this job?
Do you want the 2-minute version, the 5-minute version, or the 20-minute version?
I think between 2 and 5 minutes is good.
All right. So really briefly, when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I ended up with a degree in psychology and did nothing with it. And because of that, I ended up working as an office administrator for a number of years. I temped at a bunch of companies, and it was okay, but it wasn't my calling in life. And so finally, I woke up and I said, you know what, I want to do something that I can feel really good about, that's really exciting for me. And part of that came with the realization that I wanted to own my own business. And so with a partner at the time, we started an online DVD rental company. And this was in the early 2000s, right around when Netflix was hitting its tipping point. And we did well with that. And after a couple of years, we sold the company. And I learned that I could utilize the skills that I picked up in order to grow our e-commerce business in order to help other companies. And that's how I got my start in digital marketing. Over the last 20 years, I've been a digital marketer, and I've helped tons of companies grow through every digital marketing channel imaginable: SEO, affiliate, paid, everything you can think of. If it drove traffic, conversion, or retention, I was doing it. But I had another realization some years ago, and that was that I was just doing too much. I wasn't really doing a good job of branding who I am as a digital marketer. So I wanted to narrow my scope of services. And so now I really focus on the stuff that I enjoy the most, and that really is storytelling. And in the storytelling space, I create content, I come up with ideas, and I figure out how to amplify that content through the media, through organic search and other means in order to drive that traffic and awareness for my clients. And one of the latest things that I've been exploring is publishing content in books. So I'm going to make a small plug now, and I'll probably bring it up once or twice later. I just published this book back after Burnout, and I have 4 other authors on there: Dr. Mark Goulston, Dr. Troy Hall, Dr. Kevin Hogan, and Larry Sharp. And they're all experts in this space of really understanding how to find purpose in work and building a cohesive culture in the workplace and all this stuff that drives people beyond money. As far as burnout goes, I've had a few periods of burnout, one of which I described briefly when I went from being an administrator to having my own e-commerce business to then becoming a digital marketer. And more recently, it came from realizing that I forgot my sense of purpose as a digital marketer some years ago, and narrowing my scope of services lately so that it's more purposeful and more enjoyable. And that brings us to today.
So in terms of helping people not be burnt out, right? What would you say is, the one biggest tip or thing that you wish you knew before you started your journey as an entrepreneur?
You need to know your purpose, and you need to have a very clear mission for your life and for your company. And that has to be in everything you do. If you're doing something that doesn't align with your values and your mission, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And when I took 2 years off during my last period of burnout, that's what I realized. And so I used a number of tools to help me figure out what would make me happier with the work that I do. One of the tools, it's in my book, Back After Burnout. The tool is called Ikigai. And if you don't buy my book, you can find it online for free. It's a Venn diagram. It's got 4 segments to it: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid a lot of money for. And if you can find an activity that fits into all 4 of those segments, that's your Ikigai. That's probably your purpose at work. Give it a try. If you're more purposeful about your work and you're not so focused on the money, you're going to get much more joy out of it. That's going to keep you going, and you're going to be much less likely to burn out.
So in 2023, do you feel like it's easier or harder for people to meet all those categories in that Venn diagram as opposed to when you first started in the early 2000s?
I would say people are more aware today. I'm a Gen Xer. And so when I grew up, it was all about having a good work ethic, doing a great job, being a good worker bee. But I think these younger generations have a different perspective on things. And in some ways, my generation and older are like, oh, these millennials, these Zoomers are so lazy. But in other ways, you know what? That's not the case. What the real reason is, oftentimes employers don't instill that sense of purpose in people. They don't motivate them and show them how their job is so impactful and why they as individuals are so important to the organization. So if you can instill that in the people that you work with so that they know every day they come to work, they're working on something that makes a difference, that's going to keep them excited about things. And I think people are more aware of that now. The whole idea of just workplace wellness and paying attention to all of these aspects of your life beyond just what your income is. People are talking about that stuff every day now. One of my favorite frameworks in the wellness space is the wellness wheel, where you have all of these dimensions in terms of your physical wellness, emotional wellness, financial wellness, and several other spiritual wellness, all these different things that if you're missing any one of those 7 segments, it probably means you want to work on it a little bit to have a more complete life.
So do you think that something needs to change in the way that, like in the education system that, young people need to be taught differently as opposed to, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm 29, I'm almost 30, but even for me, it was always the same kind of mindset. Get a job, go to college, do all these things. It never really talks about entrepreneurship. It's not something even is, you even think about. You have to go to college, and if you don't, you're stupid, right? So do you think that's something that needs to change? And if so, how can we go about trying to make those changes?
It already has changed in some ways for the better, and there's a lot more that can be done. A history lesson for people who don't already know this stuff: the American educational system is based on the Prussian model of education. And this was years and years ago, like the industrial era. It was all about producing good worker bees. How do we make obedient factory workers to pull the widgets off the assembly line, put them together, listen for the bell to ring so they know to do the next thing or take their timed lunch or whatever it is. And that might have been good back then, but it's antiquated today. That's not how we work today. Today, we have more of a service economy in the US, more of a values-based system. And I think that needs to change. One thing that I would do is I would get away from this concept of a factory model of school. Think about what school is like right now. I don't know what it is like exactly today, but I know when I went to high school, our periods were like 40 or 50 minutes, and then a bell rang, and we had 4 minutes to get to the next class, and then another bell rang, and the teacher had their method of teaching, and we raised our hands and we took tests and did all these things to check a bunch of boxes. And that doesn't really prepare people for the real world. The real world isn't about, do you score an A on a test? It's about how much value do you bring to your customers? And if you can instill that in people, then they're going to do much more in the world that we live in today.
So would you say that, nowadays, in terms of all the available resources that people have in terms of the internet, do you think that it is easier to be successful as an entrepreneur than it was for you back then?
It's a good question. In some ways, yes. First of all, when I was growing up, you're right. Things like a college degree meant a lot. People thought that if you had a college degree, you were somehow smarter than other people and you could be a better worker than other people. And in some ways, that might be true. But you know what? The most successful people I know, many of them didn't even go to college. Some of them didn't even finish high school. But what they had was an ownership mindset. And when I talk about an ownership mindset, I'm not just describing someone who owns a company. I'm talking about having the mindset that you own the work you do. You behave as if you are an owner. So you have a project, even if you're making 15 bucks an hour flipping burgers, you could be the best damn burger flipper in the world. And not only that, but think beyond flipping the burgers. Like, okay, how do I become the manager of this establishment? How do I provide a great customer experience to people? That's what I'm talking about with an ownership mindset. So I think that people today, if they start thinking as an owner, they can do very well, regardless of what their education looks like.
In
And oh,
turn,
you know what? I'll touch on the internet thing too.
yeah.
You're 100% right. There is so much free information out there today. You can use YouTube is a great place to learn stuff. There are websites like Khan Academy, Khan. If you want to spend a few bucks, you could use platforms like Udemy, Udemy. You'll spend maybe 10, 15, 20 bucks on a course. You can pick up a new skill and you can even get certified in things for free. For example, if you want a career in digital marketing, you can get certified in all kinds of Google products for free. You just take their courses, pass their tests, you're certified, you can go out there and find work. And the last thing I'll say is that, yes, today it is easier to become a certain kind of entrepreneur and to build what I would call a decentralized team. COVID taught us that decentralization can work. There were a lot of bad outcomes of the lockdowns and the pandemic and all that stuff. But one of the good outcomes was that people realized and companies realized that you don't need everybody in the same physical space to be effective for most businesses today. You can have a decentralized team all around the country or all around the world where people are doing different things. So yes, somebody can start a business today and they can learn a skill and they can perform that work for clients virtually and earn a living at that. And then they can take the next step and think about how they can build a team. And so now they can recruit a team that is decentralized from all over the world in different economies. So for example, you might have people from the Philippines or from India on your team, and you're paying them what is a very good rate of pay for where they live and the economy that they're in. So they're happy. They're providing great work. So your clients are happy and you're able to mark it up. So you're happy. So yeah, today you can build a business much easier in many industries than I could have 20 years ago.
Yeah, and we have a global team, for example, like my co-founders in Pakistan. We have somebody in the Philippines. We have somebody in Nigeria now. So it's like we have people all over. So definitely like 100% with that. How would you say, so you're talking about, free information on YouTube or just in general. How do you differentiate between, because there's oftentimes different people telling you different things, right? So how do you overcome that hurdle of like who to listen to, who's going to add the most value, who's really going to help you achieve success and get to that next level?
There's a lot of baloney out there. We know this for a fact. There are a lot of people like me who say, you know what, I'm a digital marketing expert. And if you take my course, you're going to be an expert and you're going to make X dollars a month. And here's my Lambo in the background. And, I'm buff on the beach or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of people like that out there. And it's hard to sift through who's real and who's full of baloney. What I would say is that you might want to start smaller and think about, okay, what can I do as a starting point? And can I set goals that are achievable within a certain period of time before I try to take over the world? When I started my company, yeah, I wanted to take over the world. And in fact, My partner on that company and I, we joke about it from time to time. We had a spreadsheet of how many subscribers we had. And when we first started the company, we didn't know anything about e-commerce. And we looked at our subscriber list and it was like, okay, month one, we had 10 subscribers. Month two, it was like 20. Month three, it was like 100. Month four, it was like 200. And it was this logarithmic curve. And we're like, wow, you know what? Like in 12 months, we're going to be billionaires. Now, it didn't quite happen that way. We had a successful exit, but it wasn't what we imagined in this perfect world. So when it comes to starting something today, yeah, I would say set some realistic, achievable expectations and goals, and start with that. See if you can pick out one aspect. Let's say you want to start a digital marketing company. Pick out one aspect of digital marketing where you know you can do really well, where maybe you've taken a few courses online that didn't cost a lot of money, and you can produce a good outcome, and you start building your client base and your portfolio that you can show to people so that you can get better clients. And then when you've got some money coming in, if you want to take a chance and spend like, I don't know, $1,000 on a course, sure, you can try that, because your risk is a lot lower than in the beginning where you're just kind of throwing mud at the wall.
So when you started in the early days of this DVD rental company, how did you go about marketing and getting the word out in those times?
A lot of it was trial and error. I didn't have a formal education in digital marketing at the time, but I knew that SEO, search engine optimization, was relatively cheap, and a lot of it came from basically links and content. So when I started that company, the first thing that I did was tons of research on SEO. So I was reading all of the forums at the time and reading up on what worked and what didn't work and what to do. And ultimately, at the time, SEO was pretty easy. It was just, you need content that has the keywords in the heading. You need links with the keywords in the anchor text. And if you point those links at those pages, you're doing well. And you could even put up like resource pages and swap links with other webmasters, and that worked well too. And by doing that for a period of time, and also building the content and the architecture of our website, we were at the top of our category relatively quickly, and we did very well with that. Once I had the SEO in place, then I expanded into other spaces like affiliate marketing and paid search and that kind of thing. And when our company was acquired, I started really just focusing on the marketing side of things. When we first started the company, I was doing everything. I was stuffing boxes and shipping them out to people every day, in addition to trying to do all of the coding on the website, all of the content uploads, all of the marketing. But when we were acquired, I was able to offload a lot of that stuff so that I didn't have to touch the operations side of things. I could really just focus on marketing. And in addition, the guys who bought us out, they had a much different perspective on the marketing. So I learned other aspects of it. I'd say like in the affiliate space, I probably learned a lot after our acquisition that I didn't know before that. And just being exposed to other people in the community made a big difference. When we first started our company, we were in a bubble. I was just learning stuff online and growing our SEO and that kind of thing. Eventually, I joined some webmaster forums, so that helped. But then when we got acquired, I was going to trade shows and that kind of thing and meeting people and learning, you know what, not all of this stuff is necessarily the technical side to it. There's a human side to marketing too. And I think that made me a better marketer. And then over time, I started just changing my mindset and realizing that there's so much more out there that I don't know. And if I could learn something from somebody, and if I can show somebody what I know, so much the better.
So in terms of marketing, were you doing other forms of marketing like direct mail or cold calls or door knocking or anything like that when you first started your company?
For that company, no. So I'm gonna share something here that sometimes I'm on the fence about sharing, but it's okay. I'm almost 50 years old. I really don't care anymore. When we started this business, Netflix was at their tipping point. They were doing really well at the DVD by mail model. And we got into the space because we said, well, what is Netflix not doing? What categories are they not covering? Well, adult DVD rentals was not one of their categories. So that's where we focused our effort, and we did very well. We were at the top of the category for all of the keywords organically related to it and even beyond. And because it was in that space, it didn't really make sense to try to do any sort of guerrilla marketing tactics. Our marketing was more about the privacy side of things, that at the time it was a much more private individual experience to get a DVD in the mail versus going to the local video store and going to that room in the back corner and picking out a movie and then coming up to the front desk and standing online when everybody saw you go back there, and then you're paying for the video. It's an awkward experience. So part of our marketing was making it less awkward and more private, and I think that helped us tremendously. Certainly with other companies, I did do some of that stuff. For example, shortly after I left the company that acquired us, I was the director of e-commerce for a cookie company. And so we did a lot of that sort of grassroots marketing to help grow that business. Just as an example, because we were shipping out so many tins of cookies every month, we were including marketing materials in the box. Certainly on the PR side of things, we did very well with even just like making the company known as one of the best gifting companies out there. Like I had a piece, I was at like a top 10 company in Good Housekeeping magazine and some other places. So that was a much different experience. And then from there, I just moved to the agency model where over the last 20 years, I've probably helped, 200, 300 companies in different ways.
So in terms of digital marketing, what would you say is the best way for somebody to reach people without spending tons of ad dollars today?
Good question. If you're not spending a lot of money, it means you have to spend a lot of time and sweat equity. What I would say is there are two things to look at. Number one is the content on your site, clearly. Not only do you want to have optimized content, but you want it to be engaging so that when people read it, they're excited about the product and they want to know more and they want to join your community and they want to sign up for your newsletter and all that stuff. And then the other side of it, of course, is social media. And there are so many platforms out there. What I would say about that is focus on the ones that you think you can do the best on. For example, today, my personal opinion, other people may disagree, I believe that TikTok still has the easiest algorithm to rank well on organically, because it's more about the content and less about do you already have a huge audience. So that's one place I would start thinking about how you can create this snackable content on TikTok as one place. In fact, you can advertise on there a lot cheaper than other platforms. If you want to go longer form, certainly YouTube is great. If you want to reach maybe other audiences, Facebook is awesome. And I would also say that Facebook advertising is awesome, or I guess I should say Meta. I don't know. Facebook advertising is really good. And of course, Google Ads. Just keep in mind that you want to think about your marketing funnel. And this is going to sound like jargon. Generally speaking, your customer is going to go through this journey, right? They're going to become aware of your company. Then they're going to decide if they're interested. And then eventually they're going to convert to a customer. And if they like your product and service, they're going to keep coming back and buying more. So when you advertise on these platforms or when you create content, you want to think about which customers you're trying to target and at what stage of that funnel they're at. Starting out, for example, on let's say you're doing Google Ads, you might do a lot of bottom of funnel stuff, which just means you're targeting people who already know about your product or the kind of product that you sell. They're ready to buy. They're just not sure if they're going to buy from you today. So you could start with that to get an immediate return on your ad spend, and then broaden it a bit and think about, okay, now how do I bring new people into the mix? I know that's going to cost me some more money up front, but I can build more awareness about my company and get more people talking about it. And then I can convert some of those people into paying customers. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. So, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew when you were younger before you started this journey?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a complete answer to it, but certainly having that sense of purpose makes a big difference. There are certainly things that I wish I would have done years ago. I wish I would have bought certain domain names when I was introduced to the internet in my, I want to say, early 20s, maybe a little younger. I was just like, oh, how do I play here? How do I learn stuff? How do I send emails? Like those kinds of things. I wasn't thinking about how do I monetize this thing. I wish I thought that way back then because I'd be in a very good position today. But you know what? We're all on a certain path in life for a reason, and today really is the first day of the rest of your life. So I wouldn't worry so much about what you did or didn't do in the past. Think about what you're going to do tomorrow. That's how I see it.
100%. So, do you mind sharing? You can share again, like your book or whatever, somebody can reach out to you, Twitter, social media handles.
Yeah. So the best place to find most stuff about me is just dennisconsorte.com, Consorte. It's got links to my socials. You'll find my link tree on there. You'll find stuff about my book. Please buy my book, Back After Burnout. It's available on Amazon. If you don't want to spend the $20 on the paperback version, you can get it for $2.99 on Kindle. It's got a workbook in it. So this book, it's intimidating. It's like 600 pages, but the last half of it is workbook stuff. So there are different exercises you can do. Here's the I'll just show you real quick. That's what Ikigai looks like. Okay. So you can pick up my book. It's $2.99. If I brought you $3 in value today, if you got something out of this, please take a look. Some of my socials that you might find interesting. I put it on hiatus for a little while, but I'm going to ramp it back up. I have a podcast for entrepreneurs called Snackable Solutions. You can find it on YouTube or just go to snackablesolutions.com. I'll reactivate that in the next few weeks. A little side story about that one is I can't take every client. I'm very selective about the clients that I today because I made the mistake of just taking everybody years ago and burning out. So now I have fewer clients who pay a lot more, who do stuff that I really feel I can make a difference with. But for everybody else who I cannot work with directly, check out Snackable Solutions, where I provide these short snackable ideas that can potentially make your business a tiny bit better every day. In addition, if you want to know more about what's in my brain, you can go to TikTok, and my profile on there is Someday Brunch, Someday Brunch. And there I talk a little bit more about mindset. You might see some of my views on things like education and that sort of thing if you want to get outside of just the tactics of marketing. Last thing I'll say is I am a contributor to Entrepreneur. So you can look up my name on entrepreneur.com, and I post there every couple of months.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Awesome. It was great chatting with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Dan.
Bye.